Hi everyone, welcome to my Game Week 18 team transfer plan. In this video, I'm going to focus on the big news, which is Saka's injury. It's going to impact most of us. He's highly owned. I've got him in my team. You probably have him in your team. What we're going to do with him. I've got my Saka transfer strategy, which I'm going to share with you in this video. I'm also going to show you the alternative players I really like. I'm also going to run through other players who I'm interested in bringing in to improve this squad and the players that I want to get rid of. Now, if this sounds good to you, do me a favor, like and subscribe. Let's get straight into it. The squad has performed again, so I'll take it. It's been a very good last couple of game weeks, even though I've made no transfers. The problematic players are highlighted on the screen. Now, Lewis definitely is on the chopping block. He's been on there for the last couple of game weeks, but I think now his time is done. He's losing value. Man City don't look like they're keeping a clean sheet, and I'm desperate to bring in a player who's been in a couple of my videos. If you go back, you will see I've spoke big time about Trent, and I want him in. I watched him against Spurs. I've seen enough. The big haul is around the corner, and I want him in my team. So Lewis is definitely on the chopping block. I've got three midfielders highlighted. Saka, we'll leave him last because we're going to focus on him in detail. Semenyo this week returned, and Mbumo the last two game weeks have returned. So they can stay in this week because mainly I've got other fires to fight. Up top, I've got the two cheap strikers highlighted. They're both frustrating me for different reasons. Now, Pedro, last 5 game weeks, only one return, and that was just an assist. Now, Jimenez returned against Arsenal, but his minutes have been managed and he missed the clutch fixture with Southampton. Now, I'm not too happy about that. His next fixture is Chelsea, which he most probably will start, but that's a much more difficult fixture. Very frustrating. Whether they're going to come out, I'm not quite sure. I do want Jackson in this team. I've spoken about that, but again, in previous videos. But the main player we're going to talk about today is Saka. The reason is he's one of our premium midfielders, takes up a lot of money. We don't want to lose value on him, and it looks like he's out for the foreseeable future. Now, he came off injured with a hamstring injury, and it looks a bit more serious than a normal Saka injury where you see him limping and then next week he starts and he plays 90 minutes. This time he came off early, holding that leg, which looks like it's had a couple of issues already this season, which is not a good sign. Now, the frustrating thing about this is Saka was about to play Ipswich at home, the gorgeous fixture. Potential captaincy was going to be on him. He was also predicted 7 points plus for this upcoming game week. So it's a double whammy there. Not only is it forced us to make transfers when we didn't plan on making transfers in that position, this also means we're losing a top player with a gorgeous fixture. We actually got an update from Arteta, which is quite rare, and they tend to be very vague, but this one was not too bad. So basically he said he felt something in his hamstring, so we definitely know it's the hamstring. He also said he couldn't continue, which is never a good sign, especially that early in the game against Crystal Palace, and will have to be assessed. We're pretty worried about this one. They're worried about Saka. Clearly they think it is something, and it's not one of these normal injuries he walks off around the 85th minute, limping, and then the next game you see him playing 90 minutes. Nope, this looks like a real injury, which potentially means a couple of weeks. Now, he left the stadium in crutches. It didn't look good at all, but again, this is pretty standard procedure for Premier League football players. They're basically starting recovery instantly, and they're taking the load off the leg where he had the hamstring. Why put it under more strain when it could start healing straight away? Now, Arteta said he's going to be assessed. I would love it once they assess Saka, they give us a detailed update, which would help us FPL managers. The reality is, we're not going to get that. We're going to get something like, yes, he's been assessed. We can confirm it's a hamstring injury. We're not quite sure when he'll be back. Something very vague, which could mean 1 week, 2 weeks, 6 weeks. We really won't know. So I'm going to speculate. I've done some research recently, checking out the papers, the online physios, to get as much information as possible. They're all anticipating that it's a grade 1 tear. And from my opinion, I actually think it's something to that extent as well. I've suffered these injuries before playing football and they're never great. Now, Saka being a fit boy and one of those players that plays normally every minute of every game, and he normally tends to come back from injuries very quick, I've made the assumption he's going to be out for 2 to 3 weeks. Now, even if I take it just as 2 weeks, in this Christmas period where the games come thick and fast, that means he misses game week 18 to 20. For me, that's enough information to think I'm going to sell him. I don't want no one like that on my bench, losing value, taking up a premium spot where I can get another premium midfielder in. We're going to discuss that in more detail later because some of the options, they're not that great. And then you can see I've got him anticipated to come back for game week 21, which is Wednesday the 15th of January. Should be enough time for someone like Saka to be integrated back into the team. Now, this takes me to my Saka replacement strategy. The reason I've got a strategy in place because I don't think it's as straightforward as just sell him, bring anyone in, move the money around, because whatever you're doing, I have to start considering things like bringing Saka back, the new chip, assistant manager chip, and the planning with the fixtures, that I need to have a strategy in place to make sure I don't get this wrong. So number one is just to swap him for another premium midfielder that cost similar money, which means the money stays in midfield, while making it much more easier for me to bring Saka back when he is fully fit. So that's the strategy I'm currently like the most at the moment. It's pretty easy. It requires one transfer out, one transfer to bring him back in. Simple, the money stays there. This fits in with my thinking that he should only be out for 3 game weeks. 4th game week, I can bring him straight back in if I go with option 1. Option 2 is I spend the money on a cheap midfielder, which there is so many I've discussed in previous videos, and I've got a couple more in this video later on, so stay tuned for that. Or spend the money up front, like I spoke about before, Jimenez or Pedro to leave for someone like a Jackson, or put that money in defense, which is a more favorable option, someone like Trent coming in for a Lewis. I've discussed that earlier on. Or I could go a bit different here. Now Saka's gone, I could bring in 3 Arsenal players, triple Arsenal defense, who some managers have gone down that route. I've always been scared to triple up. A double up, I'm quite comfortable, but a triple up might be too much. But then again, it's an option that's available to me because I'm removing Saka. Third option is basically do nothing again. This works well for me the last 3 game weeks, but keep Saka on the bench. Use my 5th midfielder and my 3rd striker. Play them, they've been doing pretty well recently. The cheap options are delivering. And keep Saka and hope he only misses 2 game weeks. You never know, as I said, he's come back before and surprised us. This option saves me the headache of having to bring Saka back in, knowing once he's fit, I just select him. He's already in my squad. And the 4th option, which is a bit of a rogue option, would be to sell Saka and generate more money and try to bring Haaland in, as he has 3 incredible fixtures. They've got Everton, Leicester and West Ham. Now, this sounds good, but the downside is we've all seen how City are playing at the moment, including Haaland. They've been way off it. And even those 3 fixtures, you can't see him returning in 2 of those. Basically, Haaland will have to return in at least 2 of those to make this worthwhile. And at the moment, I don't have that confidence. Hence why this transfer strategy is the 4th one. But it would be very, very different. Most I've sold him, so he would be a super differential. And we must remember, in these fixtures, you could potentially even captain him. Now, that is super scary how Salah's been performing recently. But again, I had to consider all strategies, and these are the 4 that have come into my mind. As I said, it's more than likely option 1, as it's the simplest. It means I use the minimum transfers and also allows me to bring in Saka back very easily. Now I've spoken of different strategies, let's have a look at some of the players that fit into these strategies. So first of all, I just said option 1, which is spend like for like. It's tricky. The reason is the other options, they're not really putting their hand up. They're not performing at the moment. Bruno Fernandes, we know penalties, set pieces, ticks the boxes with the minutes as well. Plays in 2 positions at times, which isn't ideal. In the front 3, which is great, but sometimes in the middle 2, which isn't that great. But the worst thing about this is Manchester United themselves. They're terrible. They're honestly terrible. So if I go with him, I'm realistically betting on his minutes being good and him getting a free kick or a penalty. So if I do go Bruno, it's a lot of hope there, but he's definitely an option. Next, I have Son, very similar to Bruno. Spurs haven't been that great. In fact, Son's numbers are not even as good as Bruno's numbers. And you saw Spurs against Liverpool. They're Jekyll and Hyde team. They can turn up and smash someone 5-0, but they can also lose 5-0. Son's been a frustrating asset this season. But could I go there and hope he can turn it around? I've also got Manchester City assets that I could look at. I've got De Bruyne in the picture, but potentially even Foden. Foden returned in the last game week. De Bruyne had a little rest, should be ready for this game week. And I just said a minute ago, their fixtures coming up are gorgeous. But then Manchester City have been terrible. Foden's only got 1 goal this season. De Bruyne's not exactly been consistent. So as you can see, there's caveats with all of these players. The last one I'm going to show you here is Odegaard. Now, the temptation with him is Arsenal have Ipswich next. The fixtures are decent, and you've seen Arsenal, what they can do when they're on it. They destroyed Crystal Palace. And Odegaard, in theory, might have the penalties, but the downer with him is, recently, he's been way off it in attacking final third. Still involved in the build-up. He's still the brains in this team, but he's not been getting on the end products. I could still go there and hope that he does in the next 3 fixtures. Now, you noticed I said 3 fixtures. In my mind, I am planning that Saka's back in after the 3rd fixture. As you can see, the like-for-like replacements are not ideal. They have some pros, but they've got a lot of cons. But it does fit in with my best Saka replacement strategy. But if you're not keen on any of these options, there are cheaper plays that we can look at. In previous videos, I've gone into detail on some of these plays, so definitely check out previous transfer videos if you're considering bringing in one of these guys. But you can see I've got Ahmad, Iwobi, Enzo, and there's so many other options I haven't put in here, like Semenyo, Rogers. There's just too many options this season, and it's great for us. So I do go into detail in this video later on, so stick around for that. But this option here means I would have loads of money in my bank, which I'm going to want to move around, which is nothing wrong with that. As I said, bring in Trent, bring in Jackson, improve the squad. I have to plan in my head. I need the free transfers in to be able to bring Saka back, free transfers around as well, just in case there's other injuries, and also planning for that new chip assistant manager. So all of this is going through my mind when I'm making these moves. Get in the comments and let me know what strategy you're going with. What do you think? The cheaper route, the more expensive route? Get in the comments and let me know. I spoke about cheap midfielders earlier on, and guess what? We have another one here. Jacob Murphy recently has been flying, and some of you have been asking me in the comments to discuss him, whether he's an option or not. Let's get into it. 4.9 million, nice price. Minutes 773 tells you he's not been involved all season. Only 1.1% owned, so a lovely differential. Fixtures: Aston Villa, Man United, Tottenham, I'd say they're okay. And then after that, Wolves, Bournemouth, Southampton are lovely. But the more I think about it, I think I should swap Manchester United with Bournemouth, because Bournemouth this season are flying and Manchester United are still, not flying. Now, why has Jacob Murphy become popular? I mean, we look at his predicted minutes, they're nothing special, loads of threes and a couple of twos. So why is it he's become popular? Well, it's because he's been playing in Newcastle's front three. And in those games, his XG and XA have been excellent. He really is playing really well. Have to bear in mind his minutes in those games not been amazing. With so many cheap midfield options, where do we put Murphy? Like where do we put him in that league of cheap options when against Iwobis, Enzos, Amads? Now for me, you'd only consider a play like this if you're going for extreme differential. Now, is he the best differential in the game? I mean, you tell me in the comments. Murphy has returned in the last 3 game weeks, which include 2 double-digit returns, a 7 and a 13 and a 13. Now, this is the reason he's popular. He's been on some of my comments, and people have been asking me to discuss him and is he a viable option. You could tell by those scores, recency bias is fresh in our head. Murphy is currently only 1.1% owned in Fantasy Premier League, making him an incredible differential. Now, I did say, is he the best differential in FPL? Murphy has had 3 or more shots in the last 3 games and an XG of 0.31, 0.59 and 0.06. For me personally, I love the price point. I love that he's a differential, but when I look at the fixtures, and more importantly, look at the other options in that position, Amads, Enzos, Iwobis, like I spoke about earlier on, there's just too many options for me to make him a serious asset. Me personally, I'm going to say, add him to your watch list, keep an eye on him, don't move on him yet. I prefer the other options. But of course, get in the comments and let me know if you agree or disagree. Believe it or not, we have another cheap midfielder. Saka gets injured and we have thousands of players to pick from. Sarr has caught the eye of a lot of FPL managers. And the reason is, again, 5.7 million, so very cheap. 61 points, 1,000 minutes. So his minutes are better than someone like Murphy. XG and XA is not too bad. And differential, he's only 0.8% owned, so even better than Murphy on that front. Fixtures, we've got Bournemouth, tricky fixture, Southampton, Chelsea, and then Leicester, West Ham, Brentford. Those are pretty good fixtures. Sarr has recently come onto our radar because in the last 6 game weeks, he's had 3 returns. Memorably, a 17-pointer in game week 16, but he's also had a 7-pointer and a 12-pointer. His shot ratio in the last couple of games has been incredible, so managers are definitely taking note. When you look at his predicted points, again, they're nothing too special. We have some 2s, we have some 3s, some maybe closer to 4s. So why is it that he's become a player that some of us are considering? Well, it's a combination of the upcoming fixtures, the position he's playing, but also the last couple of game weeks he has returned. And the shot ratio has been very high. When you look at his numbers in these recent games, very impressive. Even against Arsenal, who are the best defense, he did get a lot of shots off. But all in all, he's got the same issue I spoke about with Murphy. The alternatives are so juicy. So when you commit to a cheap midfielder, you have to bear in your mind, there are others who are returning in superior ratios, playing for better teams. Someone like Enzo, been returning in the majority of his games, playing very advanced. Chelsea's got the best attacking numbers, so it makes it very difficult for you to go with someone like Sarr. I mean, the main advantage you get here is that it's a differential. Not many managers will have him in your mini league. But my opinion on Sarr is, just like Jacob, is to add him to the watch list, keep an eye on him, and just wait. I'm not moving for him yet. I think there's other options I prefer. Get in the comments and let me know what you think. The last player I'm going to talk about is another Crystal Palace player, and that's Munoz. He's been very good recently. Another player has popped up on our radar, playing very attacking, and we're going to discuss a little bit more detail regarding his attacking position later. Price 4.7 million. We're all looking for cheap defenders. Some of us have gone Hall, some of us have gone Robinson, who have been in my previous videos, but this is another option I think it's going to become very, very popular. Now, he's currently only got 51 points. The minutes are gorgeous, so no issues there. XG and XA good as well, and only 2.6% owned, so you still have a bit of a differential as well. The fixtures, like I spoke about with Sarr, are pretty good. Bournemouth, Chelsea, the awkward ones, but after that, they're gorgeous. Now, Munoz has popped up on our radar because in the last 6 game weeks, he's also had 3 returns. In fact, I should say 5 game weeks, because the last game week he was suspended, so I couldn't really include that. So in the last 5 game weeks, he's had 3 returns. Pretty impressive. Remember, he's only a £4.7 million player. Having a look at his predicted points, again, they don't stand out to be anything incredible, but I think he surpasses these predictions. Now, one of the major reasons we're all interested in him is his role he plays in this Crystal Palace team. Now, they play a 3-4-2-1. He plays the right wing back, very, very attacking. In this formation, he has permission to attack the box and be a support to all the other attacking players, whether it's crossing or getting shots off. Been watching him, he's definitely caught the eye. If you look at his heat maps, he's getting loads of touches in the opposition box. And in fact, he actually scored a goal which was harshly disallowed recently. His ownership would have been higher if it wasn't for that goal being disallowed. Now, for that price point, those fixtures, and that position he plays, and I'm also making that assumption that Crystal Palace are going to turn their form around because they've shown us signs recently. They've had a horrendous start to the season. I spoke earlier on about improving my defense. I've already got 2 heavyweights in there, Gabriel and Timber, potentially bringing a 3rd heavyweight, Trent, so he could be the 4th. And at 4.7 million, I don't mind benching him. But of course, with what I just said to you, I can play him whenever my 5th midfielder or my 3rd striker have a horrible fixture. I'll play him and play a 4-3-3 or a 4-4-2. All in all, I like him. So from my opinion, I'm going to say to you, he's a buy. Get in the comments and let me know what you think. I hope you enjoyed the video, but more importantly, I hope you found the video useful. Get in the comments and let me know which transfers you're making this week. Who are you replacing Saka with? Before you jump off to the next video, do me a favor, like and subscribe. And the last thing I'm going to say is, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas if you're celebrating, and Happy Holidays if you're not celebrating. Hopefully you get a green arrow as your present.